World over, antimicrobial resistance has become a global threat as the efficacy of common antibiotics against widespread bacterial infections is becoming ineffective, making microorganisms develop resistance to antibiotics. The problem does not relate to man only, as animals and plants are gradually developing resistance against antimicrobials as bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites changes over time and no longer respond to medicines. There is therefore the need to encourage the proper use of antimicrobials and promote the best practices among the public. It is in lieu of this that the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, World Health Organization, and the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security and other developmental partners came together to form a common front by creating awareness and understanding of antimicrobial resistance. It is also to ensure best practices among the public, especially the young ones and farmers, through the World Antimicrobial Awareness Week. Ogun State joined the rest of the world to commemorate the 2024 World Antimicrobial Resistance Week at the Veterinary Services Office in NTA Abeokuta with the theme Educate, Advocate, Act Now. The event had in attendance farmers and students from selected private secondary schools in the state who are members of the Antimicrobial Resistance Club with the intention of bringing about social behavioral change as it concerns the use of antimicrobial drugs. The Commissioner for Agriculture and Food Security, Mr. Bolu Owotomo, represented by the Director of Veterinary Services, Dr. Taiwo Jolasho, says the aim is to sensitize farmers and students on the dangers of antimicrobial resistance.
It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this year's World Antimicrobial Awareness Week. It is a global program that we observe every year. As usual, we are collaborating with FAO and Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. The aim of today's event is to sensitize us so that we can be aware of the dangers inherent in antimicrobial resistance. The targets for this year are the fish farmers, the backyard poultry farmers. We are not friendly with vets or any other animal health officer. They just go to the counter and just buy drug and use. We are facing health challenge globally. The drug that have been used to cure a particular disease is no longer curing it. It is a health challenge. Another problem is that there is this antibiotic resistant gene that can be transferred from animal to man or from man to man. That's another problem. That is why hands must be on desk to work towards combating this antimicrobial resistance.
The Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Alhaji Abubakar Kyari, represented by the State Coordinator of Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, Dr. Oluwatoyin Ayoajayi, says the use of antimicrobials should be based on prescription, saying it has become a global concern.
Antimicrobials are drugs or substances designed to either kill or inhibit the growth of pathogens such as bacteria, fungi, protozoans, parasites, etc. They are categorized based on the microorganisms they act primarily against. For example, antibiotics are used against bacteria and antifungals are used against fungi. The use of antimicrobials in livestock production, especially in poultry production system, should only be based on prescriptions by qualified veterinary doctors after a laboratory confirmation of the clinical diagnosis of the disease in question. The issues of antimicrobial resistance has become a global concern due to the inability and resistance to treat common infectious diseases resulting from misuse or overuse of antibiotics. Some of these consequences of AMR include: 1. The infection or the disease can no longer be treated by first-line antimicrobials. 2. Prolonged duration of the disease, even with treatment, increased cost of treatment or failure and death. 3. Loss of livelihoods and income through higher mortality and decreased productivity with detrimental effect on affected businesses. And 4. Newer drugs are more expensive than older ones.
Also, the representative of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, Dr. Solomon Ononleke, expressed satisfaction on the awareness program organized by the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security in Ogun State.
AMR, as we all know, called antimicrobial resistance, initially was called a silent pandemic. But you can agree with me today that it's no longer silent, because the tolls of death in our hospitals and the tolls of death among our livestock can speak for that. A lot of farmers keep recording mortalities, they keep recording high cost of production because you keep buying antibiotics, you use, it will not work, you presume that this antibiotics is fake. It is actually not fake. It is because the microorganisms have developed ability to resist the lethal effect of that antibiotics. The danger does not actually end with the animals. It also proceeds to humans. Because sometimes we use antibiotics, especially now that Christmas is close, you want to just keep them alive until Christmas. And during Christmas, you sell all of your birds, and while you are selling them, the birds are on antibiotics. The humans buy the birds, your customers buy the birds, kill them immediately, and eat them, eating the residue of the antibiotics. So one way or the other, that individual is taking little doses of antibiotics, and that gives the bacterial in the body of that individual ability to protect itself. And then when the individual is now sick, you use the antibiotics, they say it's not working. And then for some of us who have some religious belief, we say it's my enemy that is doing this. But it's actually all of the chicken that you've eaten that has residue of antibiotics.
Olorunleke says the antimicrobial use in human and animals should be prescribed by a qualified doctor.
The theme for this year is educate, advocate, and act now. So we are going to be educating you here. We want you to, in turn, start advocating that people should stop using antibiotics indiscriminately, and then also act now by enforcing yourself not to use antibiotics when it is not necessary. I want to say FAO is happy to collaborate with the ministry, and we're also happy to come back to Ogun State every year.
Several good messages poured in at the program.
As the theme is educate, when we get the education more, and we will advocate, we will go to our farmers and tell them that no, treatment is the last thing. Just engage in the best practices. Majorly the symptoms that we see is either you find the fish floating. When they are floating, gasping for oxygen, you change water. And immediately you change their water so they stabilize. So treatment or usage of drugs is the last thing in aquaculture. We don't encourage it, but we will get the education and we'll pass it to our farmers, and we will keep on acting.
Antimicrobial resistance has actually come to stay. The stakeholders are making necessary inputs just to make sure that resistance to drugs, especially by these microorganisms, are completely stopped. And it can only be stopped by human activities like getting rid of quacks, which the Ministry of Agric has actually done and is doing a lot to make sure that the level of quackery is drastically reduced. Advocacy has to be intensified a lot. There is need for us to go to schools, to go to marketplaces, to go to parks, and all areas that we can find large population that are in groups like that to give them proper education.
The team lead, Antimicrobial Response Nigeria, Dr. Zainab Abdul Karim, and other participants spoke with giant strides at the program.
The World Antimicrobial Resistance Awareness Week is an annual event which is being held every year. The aim of the week is to create awareness on the dangers posed by antimicrobial resistance so that we can prevent the emergence of antimicrobial resistance and then the spread. Actually, during the WOW week, the acronym is WOW, World Antimicrobial Resistance Awareness Week. We target stakeholders like poultry farmers, policy makers, professionals including veterinarians and human medics. And then, very importantly, students. We all know that students are powerful agents of disseminating information. When we create awareness among these school children, we expect them to pass the message of responsible use of antimicrobials to their parents, their friends at home, their peers in school, and their community.
They taught us a lot about the use of antibiotics and antimicrobial in general. And we are made to know that you have to control how you use your antimicrobial, because this thing can make a bacteria to be resistant to the drugs that you are applying. And at the end of the day, we lose a lot. Economically, you will lose a lot. So it's a very important lecture training that we had today.
We've learned that for us to be able to mitigate against this antimicrobial resistance, we can, as much as possible, do without giving our birds antibiotics. We've been told that it is not necessary for our birds to grow. It is not necessary for our birds even to lay. For us to get a lot from the poultry, the things we only need to do are to keep to the sanitary, they call it infection protection control. Once we are able to keep to all of that, we can be sure that we will not need antibiotics for our birds to do well.
What I've learned basically is that we should not partake in drug abuse, and we should not use drugs without the consultation of our doctors. And whenever we feel sick or we feel ill, we should always go to the doctors first, and they should prescribe drugs to us. We should not use our own insights to just impulsively use drugs without doctor's aid.
So far, I've learned about antimicrobial resistance and what we can do to prevent it by stopping the misuse of antimicrobials, stopping the overuse, and also gaining awareness about antimicrobial resistance.
The Antimicrobial Club in different private secondary schools also staged dramas on the use of antimicrobial. In the same vein, the Ogun State Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, in collaboration with the Southwest Commodities Farmers, recently flagged off a free mass anthrax vaccination campaign and elder enumeration program at the Veterinary Hospital Complex, Itaiko in Abeokuta. The Commissioner for Agriculture and Food Security, Honorable Bolio Wotomo, speaking at the program, emphasized the government's unwavering commitment to supporting crop and livestock farming through various interventions.
Today's event marks a critical milestone in our ongoing effort to protect and strengthen the agricultural sector in our dear state. Over the years, the Ogun State government, in collaboration with the federal government, has demonstrated unwavering commitment to supporting crop and livestock farming. Through various intervention programs, we have ensured that crop farmers received resources and assistance needed for them to thrive, while also addressing the health and productivity of our livestock sector. In the area of livestock health, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture has been particularly gracious in facilitating mass vaccination campaigns. In recent years, Ogun State has benefited immensely from this partnership, utilizing over 10,000 doses of the pestis ruminants PPR vaccines, 10,000 doses of contagious bovine chloropenia CBPP vaccines, 4,000 doses of anti-rabies, and 10,000 doses of Newcastle diseases virus vaccine. These efforts have contributed significantly to safeguarding our animals and improving productivity and bolstering food security.
He says the federal government of Nigeria had supplied over 400,000 anthrax vaccines doses to protect cattle from zoonotic diseases and actively registering herders to strengthen disease management efforts.
Anthrax disease poses a significant risk to our livestock industry and to human health. This mass vaccination program is a protective intervention aimed at preventing potential outbreaks that could jeopardize the well-being of our livestock, farmers, and the general public. In line with the commitment of the federal government of Nigeria has provided over 400,000 anthrax vaccines to protect our cattle from this dangerous zoonotic disease.
The Director of Veterinary Services, Dr. Tawo Jolaosho, reaffirms his department's dedication to best practices and aim to build resilience in the agricultural sector.
Anthrax is one of the transboundary animal diseases. Transboundary animal diseases are highly contagious epidemic disease with potential to cause substantial social, economic, and public health consequences. These diseases can threaten food security, reduce availability of non-food products, or cause the loss of human productivity and death. Transboundary animal diseases could spread through fomites, something like animal feed, animal equipment, trucks, and so on. Illegal trade and movement of live animals.
Farmers expressed their gratitude for the initiative, saying the campaign will foster trust and cooperation between herders and the government.
You can see it day live broad. We are with the Commissioner of Agric in Ogun State. We are with the SAs of the governor, almost 3 of them here, the Director of Veterinary Services. We are also with the other stakeholders, of all farmers, the Farmers Commodities chapter in Southwest. So that shows enough enough collaboration we have with everybody, every sector in the state and within Southwest to make sure our business, the cattle rearing and livestock production in Ogun State is stabilized and we get to the height esteem and expected of our production.
What they have done today, I didn't believe that something like this will come up until they call me that I must be here. So all I have to say is to say thank you for the beginning of this thing, and I ask them to continue do more about this thing.
All know the situation of farmers' herders crisis is a national issue. It's not peculiar to Ogun State alone. But comparing to other states, we can say Ogun State is one of the most peaceful states in the country. It's by the virtue of the efforts of Excellency, through my office as an SO on Interethnic Affairs and the Secretary of Peacekeeping Committee, we make sure we create continuous engagement. We make sure we do not allow a lacuna. One of the major things we were able to achieve is that we create a cluster amidst all segments. By the grace of God, there is no segment of the state that can have any issue that we will claim no knowledge on. We must have someone to engage. We have been able to create a stakeholder in each local government of the state to make sure we resolve matter.
With the awareness campaign on antimicrobial resistance, it is evident that the government is more determined to see to the well-being of the people by preaching the gospel of the use of antimicrobial and desisting from unprescribed drugs, especially antibiotics. Since bacteria, fungi, viruses are transferred from animals to man, the anthrax vaccination campaign will also enhance livestock health, promote pastoral resilience, and safeguard public health in Ogun State. Ìgbéga ìpínlẹ̀ Ògùn, àjọṣe gbogbo wa ni.